Welcome to the next step, talking AEC futures. Real journeys, bold ideas, and new directions for the future of AEC. This interview series brings you honest, forward looking conversations with architects, engineers, educators, and creative technologists who are redefining what it means to thrive in the built world. From academic uncertainty to career clarity, our guests have walked the path and now they are here to share the lessons, pivots, and principles that shaped their journey. Whether you're just getting started or stuck at a crossroad, this series offers direction, insight, and reassurance for anyone asking what comes next. Each episode, we sit down with someone who's built more than just projects. They've built paths, systems, and new ways of thinking in AC world. From creative detour to unexpected breakthroughs, these conversations are here to light the way forward. I'm KJ, and this is the next step. Let's get into it. Welcome. Today's guest, Priyesh Jain, is an architect and a computational designer, currently working at SOM Dubai, one of the world's leading architectural practices. But his journey didn't start in a global design hub. He studied architecture in Surat and, like many young architects, began his career grounded in practice, working at D3 Lab in Surat and then in I&I Design Studio in Ahmedabad. What sets Priyesh apart is the shift into computational design domain, combining architectural intuition and algorithmic precision. This shift didn't come from a top-ranking master's degree or a name brand portfolio. It came from a deep investment in learning, experimenting, and building real skills. Now, at SOM, he is part of team designing complex, data-driven projects at a global scale, showing us an impactful career don't always follow the expected blueprint. Priyesh, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kawal. That was a lovely introduction. It's great to be here. It's great to be a part of this initiative, to be together with Novatr and building this, you know, content that can guide fellow designers and young designers.
That's the aim. That's the aim. You just nailed it. And I think with your journey, people would get some insight about how they can also plan out their careers and get an understanding of how and what you did to reach to where you are currently, along with your past experiences. Great. So, without a further ado, I would start with a set of questions that would help us understand better about your journey and your perspective towards your architecture and career overall.
Yeah.
So, Rish, let's begin with your early years. You studied at a university that's not typically considered an elite university in architectural circles. At what point did you realize that label of a college doesn't really matter if you're clear about your direction?
So, about that, I would like to start from my 10th standard. It was right after my 10th standard that I decided to go for interior designing. I decided to pursue interior design because it was crucial step. You are about to choose a subject between science and commerce. I decided that I'll go with commerce, but I was not very much interested towards CA, MBA, and all those fields. So I was looking forward to interior designing, and then there was this person in our family circle who suggested me that you should go for architecture. You should aim for architecture because it has a much broader scope compared to interior designing. You'll be able to do a lot when you are an architect than you are able to do as an interior designer. And it was for about the given fact that it was at that time that it was possible with people from commerce background. If you have maths as a subject, optional subject, you could opt for architecture. So that's where I had that shift. I started looking into it. I started to see what this field is really about. What do architects do? What is the work involved? I started scrolling through Arc Daily back then. And then I also started for preparing my NATA exams during 11th and 12th standard. I started from 11th standard. So I was preparing a lot, and through my preparation, I came across these big names such as SEP in Ahmedabad because our NATA teacher was a SEP alumni. Then my relative suggested that you should also go for Sir JJ College of Architecture in Mumbai. So I was listening to these big names, and those were definitely my targets. I was pursuing. I was trying to get into those colleges, but Unfortunately, I couldn't get through. I couldn't clear the merit requirement for those. And I got enrolled into GC Patel Institute of Architecture in Surat. And initially, I was a little disappointed about the fact that, I have not been enrolled in a good school, or that the school which is considered to be great or good by the society or by architects or by people in general. But then the very first day that I started going to GC Patel Institute of Architecture, I met these people, my batchmates, who had diploma in architecture, like who didn't go for 11th and 12th, but right after 10th standard, they went ahead and pursued diploma in architecture because they were so sure that they'll be going into architecture. And then they came here to pursue bachelor's. So those people knew a lot. Like they already knew softwares. They were familiar with AutoCAD, SketchUp. They knew how architecture works. There's concept design. You develop your designs. There are GFC drawings. They had a broader idea. So I was struck with that fact, and I already had some competition and something to learn as well, because I was inspired from their knowledge that they had. So I was looking forward to it. I inclined towards the growth. I got inclined towards the learning part. And similarly, like my colleagues who had done diplomas, there were seniors who were really amazing with what they were doing. Everything was new to me, like the architectural school environment, model making, uh, presenting these huge sheets of sketches and drawings, preparing plans. So it was new. I had no experience. There was nobody in my family who was an architect. So I was enjoying that. I started to enjoy that. I started to learn from them. I started to grow there. And it was in that journey that the label of a college, or the fact that I'm not from SEPT or Surge AJ, it didn't really matter to me, because for me, I was happy. I was growing. I was learning a lot from the people around me and from my professors. Of course, the professors at GC Patel Institute of Architecture were really great. I got to learn a lot from them. So but I guess, yeah, it was there that I enjoyed my journey, and I forgot about the fact that, that there's no such label, there's no grade school that I'm a part of. So yeah.
All right. I think that pretty much sums up your journey in a way that a lot of people would resonate with as well, because not every other college, especially in India or all across globe, I would also resonate that very few are considered the elite ones. But given the fact that you start off with, let's say, not the best one out there, it doesn't mean that you're lagging behind. It's just that the journey begins over there. Where it ends, it all depends upon you. Great.
Yeah, totally.
That's quite inspiring. And in terms of where you started and where you're currently at. So if I reflect back to your journey, I want to ask you, what helped you find the direction so early towards computational design? Was it a specific tool, a problem, or a mindset shift that got you hooked and landed you into this domain?
So as I mentioned that I was enjoying the time at GCPI, learning new things, and a crucial part of it was softwares. Like there was this buzz in the college that, if you know Revit, it's really great. If you know AutoCAD, it's good. If you know SketchUp, it's good. You should be knowing rendering softwares and all. So while while I was learning new things and while I was discovering all of these softwares, by that also, for interesting fact, I met my wife for the first time during my college. So she was a diploma student, and she already knew AutoCAD and SketchUp. So we were best of friends. We made a pact for each other that, we'll be pushing each other towards a better version of ourselves in this field, whether it's about software or about sketching skills. Our seniors used to do these sketches with Copic markers. You'd have seen those images on Pinterest as well.
Yep.
So I was intrigued with all of those facts. I was inclined towards that part. I started to learn these new things with her. And with each semester going by, we were increasing our software skill set. Like, okay, AutoCAD is done, SketchUp is done. We had our Revit classes in fourth semester. And then there was this workshop by Professor and architect Harsh Patel at our campus. It was a Rhino workshop. So that was the first time that I was introduced to the potential of Rhino, what Rhino as a software can do. And I got to realize that Rhino is not very complex and heavy like Revit, and it's not too simple and easy to go with like SketchUp as well. And also the way the workshop taught us, the way the content was, the way the things were covered during the workshop, it showed us that how you can start with a conception of an idea. You have this really complex form to begin with, and then you can also take it to with the details of construction. You can develop these sections. You can do, for example, you can do contouring and quickly develop this waffle joinery detail for all your complex forms. So for me, that was really new. That was intriguing. Like, oh, we went from conception to realization so fast. It's so easy in Rhino to, realize and detail out your ideas. So that hooked me in. And after that, it was my internship semester. So because I was so hooked with Rhino and the potential of it, I was looking at these global firms around the world, which are, using Rhino and Grasshopper to apply in their designs, apply in large scale projects. How are they applying these tools? So I sent out my portfolio to all those firms, and I sent out my portfolio to D3 Lab as well, which was the practice of Professor Harsh Patel and his partner Chirag Gangulia. I didn't go through the applications for abroad, but luckily I got in at D3 Lab. And it was fortunate because at D3 Lab, it was just me and my mentor, Professor and architect Chirag Gangulia. Her sir was busy with the college curriculum, so he couldn't spend much time during the day towards the office hours. So I was spending my time with Chirag sir. And Chirag sir is an IAC alumni. So he had a lot of exposure of these tools, the skill set, what are the potentials of it. So it was through him that I got the idea, what are the capabilities of these tools. It was through him that I started to learn Grasshopper in a structured manner. It was not jumping directly towards YouTube tutorials. He suggested me that, you should go with this Grasshopper primer, which is developed by the developers themselves who have developed this software. This will show you the correct part to go with the fundamentals, understand the core of the software, how it really works. So I started with that. There was a 14-day training period before joining the internship because that office only worked with Rhino. No AutoCAD, no SketchUp. Everything, drafting, modeling, everything was done in Rhino. So it was really a good exposure. I had a broader idea of things, what all you can do with Grasshopper. Like there's this Rhino, you have Grasshopper as an add-on, and you have a, a variety of plugins which can offer you different services like structural optimization, building performance optimization. They can aid you with digital fabrication. They can also help you dive into interaction design with Arduino prototyping and all of those fancy stuff like which I haven't heard before. So I think it was really during my internship that I decided that this is really intriguing me. This is really cool to be a part of. And then I just started to dig in more and more and develop myself more and more towards the skill set.
Nice. Um, I think that's a good insight towards how you get into this domain, how you got into this domain per se. And, somewhere down the line, we all come across all the tools and softwares that are there in our universities that are being taught, or we come across in the workflow of getting our work done in college. And somewhere we find the difference very, very drastic that, okay, there is certain workflow that you do learn and work in some way. And then there are these tools that allow you to do much more in a limited amount of time and resources per se. And yes, if you are if you find that inclination and you incline towards that, your journey can be shaped with how you grow in that, and not necessarily have that figured out from the very first day is something that we get from your exposure towards this.
Yeah, that's really important thing and a good thing that you pointed out that it's not essential to have everything figured out at the beginning. You can take
Right.
small steps, you can discover new things in your journey, and that's the way to go about it. Yeah.
Right. All right. So while I've seen a lot of people chase big claims in terms of whether it's about choosing an office for internship or for applying for a job, or let's say even applying for certain universities to get their masters abroad, or But in your case, you focused on aligning yourself with the right kind of work. As you said, that while I was doing the work, I was enjoying, and in the process, it just went through, and I could explore more and get to learn a little bit more, and that was in itself enough. And like even in situations when it meant working remotely or independently, like in your case, why was that choice so important to you of staying true to what you want versus what is a little more, safer as what people usually follow the path?
So for me, a couple of factors were uh, influencing, I would say, that as I said, that there was nobody from my school who decided to go for architecture. Everybody in my classroom were aiming to go for CA or doing an MBA, like starting with BBA and then aiming for MBA, handling their own businesses. So I was always having these discussions with my friends that the package they are getting, the kind of pay they are getting right after their graduation. And then there's architecture. And we all know that initially it's a bit of a struggling phase. You find it hard to earn money as a freshie architect in the field. So I was figuring my ways around it. And yeah, I was having this thought of going for masters or applying for global studios. But then a lot of colleges that I searched for required a minimum of 2 years of experience before enrolling into masters. So I thought that I'll have some work experience, but and then the global studios I couldn't get through at that time. I couldn't get through my application to get hired at those practices. So me and my wife together decided that maybe we should start as uh, as collaborations with designers and with architects. We can work on collaborative basis. We can collaborate with people on project basis. So that way it can be a win-win for both the parties. Like they would also not have a constant cost on their head of a architect, and we will also have a lot of exposure. We will get to work with new people. We will get to work on new projects, and so I know this sounds really vague. It is not done a lot, and we were also not sure that this would be possible or not. But because we made that decision, I initially started out with my senior. I collaborated with him on an interior design project. He was having his own practice, so I started working with him. While I was working with him, this opportunity with Harsh sir and D3 Lab came again. I got to work on this project, the Cave House. So it was a really cool project to be a part of. I learned a lot from that project. So this were the initial collaborations. I was working on two places right after my graduation. I was learning new things, and the pay was not an issue. I was getting the sufficient pay given the work experience that I had and the things that I was able to learn with them. So that was not an issue then. So right after these collaborations, there were also some opportunities which were fortunate to my journey, that I got to work with my seniors who were pursuing masters abroad, who were doing their masters in Australia and other places. So they had these assignments of Rhino and Grasshopper in their colleges. And we had a strong network in our college, so everybody can connect with each other. My seniors connected me to my super seniors who were doing masters, and so I worked on their assignments. I completed their Rhino and Grasshopper assignments, so it taught me, okay, how are these tools taught in colleges? So that was also an interesting experience, and so yeah, this collaborative approach gave me an opportunity to be a part of different projects, varied projects, and have varied experiences, like working on different scales, different things. And also, in a way, we also started with our own independent projects, which were definitely interior designing, because no one can trust you with a full-fledged architecture project when you're starting off as a freshie. So that was also something new because you are dealing with your clients and you have no experience in, sending out the quote to begin with. You are stuck, okay, how should I quote my fees? What should be the target number? How do I decide on that? So I took help from my seniors. I searched on the internet. I held myself accountable and I held myself responsible. Me and my wife, we both were working hard towards it. We were dedicated and we made our way through it. I would not say it was smooth. There were definitely there was definitely a learning curve for both of us, but we enjoyed that part of our journey. And yeah, that is how it came through, and I started working that way and I enjoyed that.
Nice. That's quite interesting because it's very contrary to what we see out there, where a lot of people chase safety and security. Choosing something that you're really passionate about, even if you don't have it all figured out, which kind of like comes into the picture of ups and downs. As you said, that you might not necessarily have all the projects or all the the money that you could make out of a job is not probably the same as for working on projects. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's you don't have any project per se, but sticking to it in the process of growth, which may not be monetarily, but in terms of learning, could add up to you as a person and what you are able to build for yourself on a longer run is something that people can take away, even when they are at a point where they are deciding as to should I stick to the norm of chasing big offices or let's say job security per se versus should I pursue what I am really passionate about. So I think your journal kind of like gives an idea about it that even if you don't have the the set norm of success currently in your in your hands, you still have things that is adding value to you. May not be monetarily, and it can just sum up together one day.
Yeah, yeah, you really summed it up well. Like if you are honest to what you are doing, if you are genuine in your approach, and if you are dedicated, you are held accountable by yourself. You are held responsible by yourself in whatever you are doing. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
Nice. Now let's shift towards the big word, the computational design world. You've built your capability in complex areas of computational design, whether it's the buzzwords around parametric design, simulation, environmental analysis, BIM interoperability, all those things that are associated or under computational design world, right? And that too within without the support or structure of a formal global studio or a master's degree. How did you go about building and refining these skills on your way in the journey?
I think it started with my thesis project, which was right after my internship. Because my internship was really great, I had this really cool exposure of the potential of computational design tools. I was curious about how I can apply them to my own projects, how I can use them on my own, build my own scripts, build my own logics. And uh, it was with that project, the first project that was my thesis project, it all started. It was a skyscraper design project, and it was envisaged to be for farming, like a skyscraper which is dedicated only for farms, urban farms. And I had this logic in my mind that how can we make it more and more efficient? Like how can we have more and more open terrace areas? What if there is a terrace on each floor? And this idea came up during the research that we were doing in my internship about biomimicry and biomimetic emulation of ideas. So I I I did some research on the phyllotaxy patterns that we see in plants, and I did some research about how it is related to the mathematical codes, how Fibonacci numbers and golden ratios are linked to this biomimetic emulation. So I explored that part. I I had digging into that space, and I was able to develop this script for a form which can give you a terrace area on each floor, and it was modular as well. So like the thesis project itself was uh, a stepping stone, I guess, for starting as a computational designer. Like it was the first time I was applying for my very own project, and I learned a lot when because in architectural schools in India, the professors have traditional way of thinking, I would say. Nobody would buy this idea that, you can design a skyscraper just for farming. You can have terrace areas on each floor. How would this stand? How would that cantilever stand and all of it? So I also explored the statistical side of architecture. To support my idea, I explored the Ladybug tools at that time to support this form that okay, this is having minimum possible radiation and you can also have the maximum sunlight hours. So that was the very first plugin. That was an add-on after Grasshopper. Then for structural optimization, not, I do not have a much deeper understanding of structures, but I made this Jenga model simulation in Grasshopper where you can assemble uh, your pieces like columns, beams, and floor plates in your model, and it would fall if it is not stable, just like a Jenga model. You play Jenga if you slide out a wrong piece and it falls apart. So the tower also was simulated in the same way. The right column profiles would help you make the tower stand, and when the column profiles are wrong, the tower collapses. So I explored that on that front. So it was at that phase that I was starting to explore new plugins. I I was exploring them and approaching towards them the right way because of what Chirag sir had already taught me, that do not jump onto YouTube tutorials, go by the manuals, go by the developer docs, go by the content that is provided by the developers themselves. You can have a strong foundation with that, and then you can apply on your own projects. So I started with that, and then uh, it was during the college part that I had this journey. This helped, and then in my practice, I got this opportunity to be a part, to be an IG at Novator. So it was a really huge step because I had this knowledge about the tools, but I didn't have any idea about how these tools are applied globally in the big firms. I always saw these titles on LinkedIn that, head of technology, design technologist, senior computational designer, junior computational designer. So I was curious that what all these people are doing, like what is exactly that these guys are contributing with at these big offices. So I got that exposure at Novator because it had mentors from all these places. You name it, like Heatherwick Studio, Saha, UN Studio. So to be with them, to learn from them, and also to connect with a large community of uh, people who are enthusiastic about computational design, who wanted to learn computational design. So it helped me refine myself as well with the queries of my learners, with each every new cohort. I also learned in that process. I also got to grow in that process. And I think this is how it went on and on. It started to refine more and more during my days with INI Design Studio. When I was consulting with INI Design Studio, I had this chance to myself explore these tools at a huge scale on large scale projects, large scale commercial towers and residential towers. So there I was introduced to Rhino Insight. I saw the potential of it, like how you can establish workflows between Revit and Rhino, how you can seamlessly pass and flow data between these two softwares. So yeah, I think this is how, like, from different experiences and from different projects, the different parts of my journey, I grew at every step in regard to computational design. The skills got more and more refined.
That's great. So, what I understand from this is that you've learned by applying what you've learned already, let's say from your internship or the understanding that you had the tool. In the process, you grew. And also with the network that you could build over the years, where you were within the domain of people or in the network of the people who are working at those leading practices, whether it's Heatherwick Studios, AHA, the architects or big architects. And based on the learnings that you had on the way, it could help you grow and understand, not just from the point of view of a tool per se, but how you could have a greater impact by the means of computational design domain. So yeah, that's quite interesting as a learning from this to take things forward, even if you don't have all the things aligned from the first day, or you don't have clear idea.
Yeah.
Just keep on learning and growing, and whether it's about application of your learning or through networking and keeping yourself exposed to the things that you want to be a part of. Great. So let's move a little towards your approach. I think you strike as someone who's deeply methodical, not just into learning tools, but going deeper into how they work and where they apply. Like the example that you gave about, if you were to do certain things on the project that you're doing, how can you optimize on those fronts is a big question that you ask yourself on the project. And in this case, how do you approach learning something new every other day that comes across, whether it's about applying onto project or exploring the field in itself?
Yeah, so I would take the same example of my thesis project, because at that time I had nobody around me to guide me if I get stuck on the script that I'm working on, or if I'm stuck on the plugins that I can use for a particular problem. So my first step would be to typing in my queries at McNeil Forum, because that was my go-to platform, and it really helped as well. I got uh, all the answers to my all possible queries during the thesis project, and even during the practice. Whatever doubts I have had about the software itself or about the plugins, I could get those answer on McNeil Forum. And also there is a lot of content on YouTube. There are a lot of resources available for us to, uh, make ourselves aware of what actually is possible with this tool and how you can go about it. There is everything which is available in today's world with you. You have YouTube tutorials, you have manuals, you have people around you on LinkedIn. You can connect with them, and you can see how they are applying these tools. And while you are connecting with them, I this happened with me as well. I also engaged in conversation with completely unknown people to me on LinkedIn. I was so stuck in my query that I couldn't resist myself to, type in and send a message to people on LinkedIn that, oh, you seem really good at it. You have a lot of experience. Can you help me achieve this particular outcome? I'm trying to do this. I'm stuck at this step, and so and so. So this really helped a lot. So I think if you are curious, you find your ways on your own. Like, you are not stuck anywhere because you are curious. That curiosity never lets you settle. It pushes you to, see what all options are available, how can you get your answers, and what are the ways possible around it. So yeah.
Nice. That's quite interesting. That if you have the hunger, you have the way.
It's us. Yeah.
Right. All right. So in a world where everyone wants quick result, right? If you apply somewhere, you want the results and you want big opportunity arriving at your door because you already attained something which sums it up. But more or less, it's not the case every time. Then in that case, how did you stay patient in your early days while you were owning your craft, and especially when recognition or opportunity wasn't immediate?
So I never realized that the fact that about recognition or the things that you have mentioned, I never thought of it. It never came to my mind while I was involved in these projects, or while I was working with all these people that I've mentioned. Because whatever project I was working on, there was always something new that I was getting to learn. There was always so much to learn from the people that I was working with. I was so inspired with each and every one of them, whether be it my seniors, be it my professors, be it my collaborators. So uh, that really never happened to me, that I'm lacking something, I'm lacking some recognition, I'm lacking a name of a big office per se, but I was enjoying the work itself. I enjoyed the company of my collaborators and my professors whom I was working with. So I think, yeah, that really helped, I guess. It was never the case that I realized during that part of my journey that I'm lacking this recognition.
Understood. That's a good heads up for people who define what matters. Maybe recognition matters for some, but then it's not necessarily the case to define the success for a person, and that clearly states in your case as well. So
Yeah, yeah.
joining SOM at Dubai is a huge milestone, especially from where you started and where you landed. And what makes it special that it has come across after years of quiet preparation? How did this opportunity come your way, and what did you do uh, to that helped you stand out in the process?
Okay. So, uh, while I was going through all these experiences, while I was enjoying my work with all these people that I've had a chance to work with, I saw that there was some limitation to learn and expand my knowledge further because uh, there was at one point of time there was nobody above me as a senior computational designer. All those tags like remained in my mind. I was always curious what these senior guys are doing in the computational design front. So I thought maybe I'm lacking that understanding. I lack that bigger perspective. I have to get in touch with someone who have had this experience of working at global practices, and I can then maybe push myself further and learn more about computational design and its application, because I was not sure and confident if this is the way people do it, this is the right way to do it, because there was no structured way that I followed. There was no formal education that I have had about computational design tools. So that's where I got to realize that there is a need to maybe focus on uh these pathways to have an experience at these global studios. And that's how I started at INI, by the way. And then I was also applying for other offices. I had already applied for SOM New York, SOM London office, but I couldn't get through. So I was not very much motivated that, I'll be able to get through this opening at SOM Dubai. I was not thinking of sending my application itself, but Bhumi was confident that, we can get through. We have had some good experiences. We have had hands-on experience on how the projects are transferred from your computer screen to the real scale. So I sent out my application, and luckily I got through. My application got through. I had two rounds of interview. Again, like it never really felt that I would be able to pull this off, because I had no professional experience per se. There was no proper job experience that I have worked for 2 years at INI or two years at Hafiz. It was just me collaborating with people, consulting, working on projects, working with people. It was very raw. But on the other hand, if you'll see, I had some really cool project applications of these tools. I got a chance to file my thesis project as a design patent in India. And so there were these two things. On one side, if you'll see that there is no structured experience, there is no masters, you cannot do it. But on the other side, you have good project experiences, you have good understanding of the software, you are part of this network with Novatr, with the people around you that how things are going at the bigger offices. So yeah, I think that really helped me stand out with my application. And I think that helped me get through for this SOM opening.
That's quite interesting what you just mentioned. I mean, even though you didn't had any particular job, that was a precedent to where you landed at SOM, which also talks about the capability part of your approach, where you applied your learning onto certain projects, whether even if it was just around doing certain projects which came across your way or even in your thesis, which showed your caliber and capability as a good computational designer. Yes, networking adds up, but that's secondary. Being aware of workflows and be able to add value is something that those big practices look for instead of the big names that you come from a big office. Of course, that can add value, but the primary thing is how capable are you? And if you have that all packed in, I think it doesn't matter which name do you carry forward from the back, and it just matters where you can take things forward, and that is something that people can also resonate with if in case they don't have, let's say, 2 years continuous experience of doing a job, but there is still something that can showcase your capability and the value that you can add. Why would these practices not hire you over someone who already has those big names?
I think you said it right that it doesn't matter where you are working, but if you are working with your utmost dedication and you are being responsible towards your work, you own your work and you love your work the way you're working. So that really helps.
Yeah, great. So now you're at SOM, right? How does it feel now to step into a global studio with such a strong foundation already in place? What parts of your past learning has become unexpectedly valuable at SOM? What are the values that you can add over there with your experience?
Uh, so to start with SOM, like the to be a part of such a big practice, it's a great feeling. Like I still remember that when I started out as an architect in my family, and even my mom and dad couldn't really differentiate between what's interior design and what's architecture. But now I am relevant to them as an architect because now they can say that, Burj Khalifa, Mumbai International Airport, and I'm working with those guys. So that's really an amazing feeling. It gives so much pride. It feels so great to be a part of this big practice. And also in the beginning, it was a bit overwhelming. I was a bit underconfident of whether I would be able to, contribute because I might not be able to pull things off the way these guys do. There might be some things which I expected from me, but I might not able to do them because I don't have masters or I don't have a professional experience. Maybe I was a little underconfident about that fact, but uh, it went really well. It went really great. I enjoyed working with people, and the thing that helped me the most from my past experiences is, I would say, adaptability to situations and to be positive about each and every task that you have been given. Right now, I like before SOM, I've been working with computational design tools a lot. I have been dealing with carpenters. I have been dealing with clients on interior design projects. So there was this gap with the architecture side of myself. Like the way I studied in my school, developing concepts of these projects, fancy institutes, towers, and all of it, and then developing them. There was a disconnect between that when I was working in collaborations, when I was having my own project. So at SOM, I really got to connect with that version of mine again. I was starting with, conception of ideas. I do not have to think of budget anymore. There are these super cool projects with me. You just design, you develop your designs. You have people around you, more and more experienced people around you to help you guide through through that through that projects, and you learn along that way. So yeah, I think that's it.
All right, great. So, for students or young designers from not so famous colleges or working in a big firm, they start to feel invisible, right? As your early days were along the lines as well. What's your message to them to have that hope and see the future, even if the tunnel at the end seems dark at the moment? But how can they find the light at the end of the tunnel?
I would say that you should not be focusing on that side at all, because if whenever you're working with somebody or whenever you're working on any project, if you are uh, dedicated to that work, if you are giving your best at it, you wouldn't have time to think about all of these things. You would be enjoying that process. You would be a part of that journey. You would be inclined towards learning more things in the way, growing with the people that you are working with. So I think if that's the focus and that's the thing that you are doing, then it doesn't matter at all. The good thing is if you are working and you are enjoying your work, that that's the best thing that can happen to you. You just should be happy what you are working on and the people you are working with. And you should know that you are honest with yourself and you realize that you are pushing harder and harder at each step. You are growing every day. You are learning new things every day. So yeah, that's the most important thing, I guess.
That's a good advice that you've shared, which kind of like helps people resonate with their situation where don't focus on the outcome, focus on the process, in the process of growing. And at the end of the day, it will all make sense sooner or later. That's great. So, my final question to you is, what has your journey taught you about the kind of patience, clarity, and work ethics this field really demands, whether it's about architecture per se or within the domain of computational design or the work that you do at these big practice? And that too, especially on a long run.
Um, I would say that it's not easy to be a part of this field. I'll be honest that there have been times that I've thought that I should quit. I should quit architecture because it's so demanding. There are so many sleepless nights. You have to be aware of so many things. You have to be aware of so many softwares. You have to learn new skills every day. You have to be good at modeling. You have to be good at rendering. You have to be good at everything. Basically, architects are like supposed to be master and good with so many things, so it's not easy to keep up with that. But I would say that if we are positive in our attitude, if we are staying curious in our journey, so that helps you deviate from all of these things. You start to enjoy these hectic schedules, the sleepless nights, and the workaholic version of yourself. So I would say the most important thing is to be consistent at what you are doing, to be consistent and upskilling. Like, I think when I was studying, there were no such platforms like Novatr, but people now can leverage these platforms. People now can upskill while they are working and develop new skills every now and then. I think that's really important thing to have in mind if we are in the field of AC or in any other field, because now uh, with AI, things are changing a lot. And I can see that the first change after drafting was AutoCAD. It was a huge gap that people people were supposed to adapt to AutoCAD after drafting. But then from AutoCAD to AI, the timeline is really narrow. So many things have been coming and so quickly. So you need to be uh, adaptive. You need to stay consistent and learn new things. Yeah.
That's great. That's good advice, Priyesh. And I think this comes to the end of the interview. And what I would want from you as a final note is that if you have anything to suggest to our viewers who are out there, and probably a final note for them that you can share as an advice in a nutshell, that would really help.
Uh, in a nutshell, I would say that enjoy what you are doing. If you are not enjoying it, don't do it. Find something that you enjoy and give the best at whatever you are doing. And don't think about all of these things that we have discussed already. Just it's just you, your work, and uh, how you are focusing on yourself, how you are focusing on your growth. Just be honest to that part. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing that I would say.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Priyesh, for being here today with us. I think your journey would shed some light into the life of many people who question their own position in life at the moment, where they do not see clarity at the end of the tunnel. And but with the experience that you've shared or the journey that you've shared, it brings more of an understanding how things can quickly turn around, even if you feel like you're getting stuck at the moment. But then the real part is to staying consistent, as you said, and keep learning, keep growing. Whenever the opportunity arises, grab it with both hands.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kawal, for having this conversation with me. That really gave me a chance to, uh, share my experiences. And if at all it helps anybody in any way, whether it is small or big, it will really make me happy that I was able to contribute in a smaller way or any way to the fellow designer community or to the people who are aiming to be at these big places or do great stuff in the field of AEC. So thank you for so much for having this conversation, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, Priyesh. Thank you. And we'll now take leave. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.